Are you trying to create content in an industry that just isn't exciting? In this edition of Friday 5, I'm going to give you my 5 tips for creating exciting content in so-called boring industries. You're not as boring as you might think you are. The first thing to remember is that what you do isn't necessarily boring. It's interesting to somebody. So yes, you might not be able to come up with a content that wins all the awards, or it might get shown off at all the marketing conferences, but that's kind of missing the point. Just because what you do might not win the awards or might not get shown off at all the marketing conferences, it doesn't mean that it isn't useful, relevant, meaningful and engaging content. What you do is clearly important and clearly interesting to somebody. If it wasn't, you wouldn't do what you do. Be clear on your objectives. One of the reasons why people in so-called boring industries get a bit of a downer on content marketing is because they're not clear on what they're actually trying to do. So they look at these big brand campaigns that get all the awards and they think, well, how can we compete with that? But that's missing the point. The objectives that you're going to have for your content is probably going to be very, very different from the objectives that these big brand campaigns have. So the comparison isn't really helpful. Instead, focus on what you want your content to do, what you want it to achieve, and who you want it to reach. Remember that it's about the audience, not you. Remember that point from earlier, that somebody, somewhere is going to be interested in what you do and what you've got to say. If they're not, you've probably got bigger problems than just coming up with content. And that's the thing that you've got to get a really good grasp of. What are they interested in and why are they interested in it? What are the challenges that they're facing? What are the key pain points that you can help them with? That is how you start coming up with really interesting and really exciting content. Sell the vision, don't sell the spec sheet. One of the things that prevents content from being exciting is not necessarily the subject matter, but the way it's sold. So a lot of content that's out there is built around old school sales techniques, so things like features and benefits, that's a classic one. It's an old school sales technique that's worked its way into online copywriting over time. But people aren't buying based on features and benefits anymore. They're not buying based on what it says on the spec sheet. They don't really care that your product might be 0.2 gigahertz faster than one of the competitor. What they care about is what it helps them do, what problems it solves for them, and what it helps them to create. I've spoken to a lot of people in these so-called boring industries about the content they create, and almost always they're creating content from an inbound perspective. And that's not necessarily a problem, but if you're not getting joy from inbound, consider changing your approach. There's a huge demand out there for much more personalised and targeted content marketing, and ABM can really help you meet that demand. On the one hand, it forces you to think much more about your target audience and their needs, but it also makes your content stand out from the crowd. Those are my 5 tips for creating content in so-called boring industries, but if you want to know more about our approach to content marketing, make sure you download our free complete content guide. Thanks for watching.